I'll have to remember what I had for breakfast, so I do that next week. Actually, it was the same kind of shake that I have every breakfast, so I know what I had. But anyway, so what we do now is what we call this is the Afterburn. So what we do is take comments and questions from you about the teaching today. Please keep it directed to what was said today. If you have questions about anything else that I teach, you're welcome to contact us directly. You can call us, email us, etc. And we'll try our best to get to your questions. Bear in mind that we do get hundreds of emails and things like that and Facebook messages every day. At the moment, my phone has about 21,000 unread messages on it, so just understand how hard that is for me to keep up. And so we do not ignore. It's just very challenging to get to everybody. So if something is urgent, I recommend highly a phone call. If you're in another country, send some sort of contact through Facebook or something saying urgent, need a call, and then we could set up a Facebook call or a Skype call. Okay, either one. If you're in another country, please be aware of the time zone differences. Sometimes Robert will get a call at 5:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'll get one at 3 in the morning. Now, I know I tell you that I'm awake at 3 in the morning. That doesn't mean I want phone calls at 3 in the morning. The reason I'm still awake at 3 in the morning is because you're not calling me and I can get some things done between 1 and 3. If I start getting calls at midnight, 1 and 2 and 3, that kind of defeats the whole point. Okay? But if you are in another country where that's the only time to talk to you, we will make an appointment and schedule to do that, and that's not a problem at all.
You mentioned a lot of stuff that some people out there might not think that you were giving enough scriptural backing. So I looked up a couple of verses that back up what you're talking about, specifically concerning what shall we sin? What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? That would be Romans 6:1 and 2. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin, not dead to the law, but dead to sin, live any longer therein? Also in that same chapter, in verse 15, 16, what then shall we sin because we are not under the law but under grace? God forbid. Know you not that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness? And what you also said reminded me of Hebrews 10, 26, 31. And I'll get there in just a second.
Are you trying to apply for a research assistant or something?
Why not? So 26:31, that would be, for if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remains no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' law died under mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sorer punishment, suppose you, shall he be thought worthy, who hath trodden under foot the Son of Elohim, and hath counted the blood of the covenant, wherewith he was sanctified, an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of favor.
Okay, so first of all, I appreciate what you did. Second of all, let this be a caution to everyone. If you're going to do that, you must be aware that in doing so, you probably opened up 3 things that I didn't necessarily want to have to deal with that can come now from the other questions. Those verses make the point you want, but they open up other things as well that need further explanation. So just be aware of that when you do that. Sometimes it's not so simple because you had grace in there. You had all these other issues that come up in there. You have some sort of different sounding thing that was what happened under Moses. Now this happens with Yeshua. We can't just open those. Be careful with that, all right? Because I'm the one that's going to have to answer all those questions. See, that's the hard thing with being a teacher, is that when you bring out verses, you have to realize that bringing something out may bring out the answer you want or make the point you want, but also open up 4 other things that you didn't want to open. And that's not easy. Okay, so I'm not picking on you. You gave a good example that people can now learn from. They realize how that touches on things. Even when I teach, right, things get touched on, but I'll often say, but I'm not going to address that piece. Let's focus on this piece. Because I'll address that piece in a different teaching. Okay, Steve?
Well, I'm glad I'm here because I don't know how I could type this in.
Robert's glad you're here too, because he's not sure how he's going to read what you typed.
Back in Deuteronomy 4:25, we shall do corruptly. I think it would be nice if you could touch on how we have a disconnect and often want to blame others or circumstances on why we choose to do corruptly.
Okay, so there is a disconnect. There are times when people choose to feel. This is actually, let's say, choose to think. We'll start with the thought. They choose to think that other people can make them do something. Nobody can make you do anything. Oh, they may put all kinds of pressure on you, and you could decide to give in to the pressure or not. But if I came to you with a loaded gun, put it to your head, and told you to do A, B, or C, whatever it is, told you to do something or I will kill you, I still can't make you do it. You can choose not to. You could choose to get shot in the head, whatever it is. I mean, nobody can make you do anything. So what people use as excuses saying, well, this situation or this person forced me into a place where I had to break the Torah, well, that's just not true. Go read about Hannah and her sons in the book of Maccabees, 2 Maccabees. Okay? Sword to the child, each one at a time. Told, we're going to skin you alive, boil you in oil if you don't eat this pork. So you might as well just go ahead and eat it. And one by one, they got skinned alive and boiled in oil and didn't eat it. See? They couldn't be made to do it. Now, are you under threats that bad? No. Well, then my mom won't talk to me anymore. Well, maybe that's true. Well, I might lose my job. Well, maybe that's true. You're not, we're told, are you willing? There's a verse that, that talks about Yeshua where he was willing to be obedient unto death. These people aren't even threatening death on you when they intimidate you. Why are they making you afraid? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Okay. After 43 years, I'm finally reading the Bible for myself. And you mentioned one covenant and mainstream teachings that teach a new covenant. With the fulfillment of Yeshua, how do we determine which Torah laws are not necessary?
None of them. They're all necessary. The only ones that we don't do are the ones that we can't do. Not won't or don't want to, but can't. Does you understand what I'm saying? For example, there are laws related to the temple. No temple, you can't do it. Okay? So all the laws go forward. Nothing's been done away with. Some of them you just can't do. Okay? By the way, there are laws. You're a man. There are laws for women. You can't do them. There are laws for women, right? Okay? And then there are laws for men. Women, guess what? You can't do those laws. They're for men. So there's not any problem with understanding that part of it, but let's understand that nothing's been done away with. Some things are no longer doable because the thing that was necessary to do it is not there. In other words, when people say to things like this, they'll say, oh, you're keeping the law, so what, are you going to start stoning people now? Well, no, you can't. Because to do that, you would need to have the cohesive nation with its government and its judges and all of the other things necessary in the court system to get to that point of stoning people. We don't have that. It was never allowed in Scripture for anybody just to say, oh, I think you broke a law, let me stone you. Didn't it have to go through judges? Witnesses had to be found. They had to be proven to be true witnesses and all of that stuff. So the only things that we don't do are those things that, because there's missing elements, can't be done. In other words, it would be wrong to do. You can't make offerings in your backyard. Scripture tells you that's wrong. So no temple, no offerings. Is this making sense? Okay. We do everything that we can do. Now, some things that you still don't necessarily have to do because the temple's not around, you can practice and rehearse them. To really keep the feast, you would have to actually go to Jerusalem, be a temple, and all that other stuff. So we're not actually fully keeping the feast when we keep them here. But you can go to Israel and do it too, but that's still not fully keeping it. No temple, no people living as a nation. Those things are missing. So we rehearse them the best we can. So that which we can do without breaking the Torah, we do it as best we can. Those that we can do because Torah says to do it without any issue, we absolutely need to be doing those things. And those things that the Torah says, if you don't do it exactly this way, it's a problem, we don't do it. Does that answer your question? Mostly, okay? The thing is that what we're still doing is swimming upstream against a dispensational mindset. Okay, there's not a single verse that said that what Yeshua did away with anything or fulfilled anything. Okay, he fulfilled prophecies about what he would do. He didn't fulfill something meaning that we no longer have to do it. In other words, he fulfilled the things that were expected of him. He didn't fulfill anything that's expected of you. I've said this like 1,000 times. It needs to be said again. Yeshua did every single thing he needed to do. He didn't do one single thing. He did not do one single thing that you need to do. If we can embrace that, it should clarify a lot of this. He only did the things he had to do. He also did the things that benefit you that you could not do. You could not pay the penalty he paid. He did that so that you could have life. That's something you couldn't do. But everything you can do, that's been instructed of you, he didn't do a single thing of those things. You need to do them. Will he help you? Yes. Will he encourage you? Yes. Will he be by your side while you're struggling to do it? Yes. But he is not going to do it for you. You need to do it because there's growth in the struggle. There's growth in the journey. If every time, let me think of an example. If every time, let's say my child wanted to ride a bicycle, and if every time they went on to get on the bicycle, I got on the bicycle and put them on the handlebars in front of me and I did all the biking, are they ever going to learn how to do it? At some point, I have to sit them on the bicycle. They've got to ride the bicycle. So I don't help them in their growth if I'm always doing it for them, am I? No, they're more like, the thing is, what do we normally do? We hold the back seat, or we hold the back of their jacket or their shirt, and we help make sure they're okay. While they're doing it to keep them safe, eventually we let go. That's what Yeshua does. He's holding on to the back of the seat or the back of your whatever you're wearing to hold on to you while you're doing it. You're doing it, though. But that way, if you fall, he's got you. Does that make sense? But then eventually he lets go and you're on your own. But he's there watching you. He's there to run and help you if something happens. We don't just let them go on their own the first whole bunch of times once they can do it themselves. We're sitting there watching. It's only later on when we go, okay, I feel like you've got it down. You've got it handled. You can go do this on your own. I don't need to be out there anymore. But the difference between us and Yeshua is that we've got other places to be. We can't see all these things all at the same time. So he can still watch you and never stops watching you. That's the difference. So hopefully that's a good question, though. But let's always remember, this is a change of our mind, of our thinking process. Stop thinking that he did anything you need to do. And stop praying for him to do everything for you that you need to do. Ask him for the strength to do it, the wisdom to do it, the knowledge and understanding to do it. Ask him to hold your hand while you do it. I don't care how you go about it, but make sure you're praying so that you're the one doing it, the part that you need to do. But I don't want to do it. Well, that's something you might want to pray about that. Pray about your stubborn, foolish thinking process. Well, I don't like it. I don't want to. Stop. Some of you are thinking, if that's the way it's going to be, I'm never counseling with Rabbi Steve. He's going to say to me after I finish talking, all right, knock it off. I might. Some of you have had me do that, but you know what? By the time we got there, you knew that was what you needed to hear.
In Isaiah 65, it says in verse 3, the people who slaughter in gardens. What's that about?
In other words, people are doing offerings in their own backyards, or they're doing it, or they're making special religious gardens. A lot of cultures have these special gardens that they think bring them closer to their God or something. Okay? I mean, you look at some of the old places where they still might have, especially in Europe, that they may have old houses or buildings that have gardens in the back. Some of them are just pretty gardens. Some of them, though, have altars and places where people used to come and pray to their gods, whatever they were, in these gardens. So gardens were used as part of worship, all right? But part of it also was the place where he says, do not make sacrifices in, any place in your own house or all those kind of things. Okay, Randy.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I just wonder about our country. Why is it we're not really being punished for all the pork we eat and all the stuff we do and all the terrible things we've done, ever since 1776 and probably before then. It just seems like our country is still blessed, and I'm a little bit, I just need some kind of an insight on that.
Okay, so excellent question, all right? This is the same question, by the way, that we've had prophets say, why do the wicked seem to prosper? The reason is because he wants us to have that thing out there that looks right, seems right, but isn't right, for us to choose not to go that way. And that's something, by the way, that we're going to read. I think we're going to read that next week in my notes. There's a couple of places where we are going to read where it talks about, hey, they're all thinking they're doing great. We read that today where the person's like, leave me alone. I'm set apart. I'm fine. I mean, Israel prospered still quite a bit even when they were sinning, until Yahweh said, but you're my people. You're claiming to be my people. I put you out there to look and be a representative of me. This is not going to go unpunished. But he let them go that way for a while because he was hoping and working with them. I should say hoping. He was putting them through a process where we can see that our fruit of our hands brought that about. Now, us as a country, you got to remember there's a source out there that wants to claim he's the creator, wants to do all the abundance and all the blessings and all the other things. And we see it all coming out of wrong thinking, wrong action, wrong behavior. And so Yahweh's allowing it because of the contrast. He wants us to choose. You know what? It's kind of like Job. He doesn't want there to be any Jobs. He doesn't want us to be walking around where Hasatan can say, well, they're so great and all this because look, you give them everything. That's the only reason why they listen to you, because you give them everything. And so he's working with those he's working with. Everybody else is just out there mostly with the hands off, and some of the things are going to work and some of the things are not going to work as far as, financial decisions, business decisions. But you know what? It's an illusion, because we are still, with all the technology and everything else and all the wealth, we still have so much poor, so much inequity and injustice, and I'm not even talking about just financial, the way we treat people, the way we go around dealing with those who are in need. This is a country where, Rabbi Tom yesterday almost couldn't get into the hospital and get what he needed because between the VA and the this and the that, and everybody's got this. You know what? The guy is almost dying. Can you just take him in and take care of him? And stop worrying about all that stuff. They told him he could have an appointment in March. Not yesterday, but the couple of days before that. In March, the guy might not make it to February. You're going to tell him in March. But this is still part of the same country with all of its quote-unquote abundance. But you know what? What do we use to count and qualify abundance? Physical wealth? We're going worse and worse into spiritual depravity, sexual depravity, gender confusion, everything that you can imagine. We're trying to find ways to either black, white, Republican, Democrat, whatever, anything we could do to create fighting and strife and name calling and this hate that people have over whatever. Anything we can create factions in. Okay, so while this place is one of the more financially abundant, and we have physical abundance, meaning that we have almost all the places you go, there's indoor plumbing. We take that for granted. And we have air conditioning, and I travel quite a bit, and I've been places where they don't, okay? They don't have air conditioning, and they don't have heat. And that could really be a challenge. Okay, when I went to visit Canada a couple of summers ago, Most of them figure we don't need air conditioning. It's only hot 3 days a year. Well, they had a heat wave, and it was like 100 degrees in people's houses, and there's no air conditioning. Because it doesn't happen often enough. And that wasn't real comfortable for anybody. And so, yeah, we are walking around with the trappings and appearances of abundance. But inside, this is what Yeshua says, inside you're all dead man's bones and nothing. It's all empty. You look good on the outside. Well, he was talking about people, but also nations. This nation has got a lot of problems. Okay? We're broke in so many ways. All right, hopefully that answered that question a little bit. But I think that one of the things that has to happen is Abba has to allow us to do everything the best we can our way, thinking that we're so smart, and then allow it to implode on itself so that he can intervene at the last second so that when we have that end time, people are actually going to say, well, if you had left us alone, we'd have been just fine. Just like I have kids. My kids have done that, right? 11, 12, 13, 14, especially when they get to be teenagers. Well, if you just left me alone, I'd have figured it out. Anybody ever heard that? Why'd you have to come in here and get all involved? I had it. I got this. Don't you think that's a human thing? So Abba needs to be able to say, excuse me, let's play the videotape. They don't use videotape anymore. Let's play the DVR. And then get up on a big wall somewhere and say, this is what you guys did with my hands off of it. Because his hands are mostly off. Because if his hands were on, people could point the finger at him. Well, if you'd have just let us, we'd have been just fine. Well, fine, do it yourself. And parents do that with their kids too. Fine, do it yourself. Let's see if that's true. And so I think he's allowing us to do whatever we do. It's the few, the remnant, he's called to see things a different way. And that's not people in power. That's not people in authority. That's not people with abundant, wealth, physical wealth. He wants them to show that it's all going to eventually blow up. Does anybody remember any of the empire? Look, you had Assyria. Where are they now? Babylon. Where are they now? Egypt, Rome, all these big empires. Where are they now? Oh, they had abundance. They were dominant. Guess what? The U.S. is just another one of those. The signs are all on the wall. The only reason why we're different than the other ones is that rather than impose our will by having soldiers in your town and in your city to impose themselves, we are the straw that stirs the drink financially, and everybody needs us not to collapse or everybody goes down. If that weren't the case, I think we would have gone down already. But the rest of the world needs us not to, because we consume more than anybody else. We keep all the economies going. So we will probably be the last one to go down, and when we go down, it all goes down. But that's only because everybody needs us not to. If they didn't, there wouldn't be anything holding us up. And that's all I want to talk about politics before I get in trouble. Notice I didn't take any sides. I had to keep myself out of trouble with the Big Brother listening guys. Just wave at them.
From Bernhard, you read Jeremiah 31:31, when I shall make a renewed covenant. He understands that the covenant was renewed, but would you please explain the next few words? Not like the covenant I made with their fathers. What are those words referring to?
Okay, so first of all, I appreciate that. I did mention Jeremiah 31:31. I didn't read it. So I know you said that I read 31:31. I didn't read it. He said that this one's going to be different because this is going to be the one. He keep reading, and it says, not like the one that I made with their fathers, the one which they broke. But this one, if we keep going down to verse 34, 35, it says, but this is going to be at a time where each one will not have to say to their neighbor, know Yahweh, because everyone will know him from the least to the greatest. So the covenant's going to be different because of us, not because of him. So there will be something different about it, meaning we will be in a different place. We'll be ready to actually complete and keep that covenant which the fathers broke. So that, right, because it'll be written on our hearts at that point, which, by the way, he's not just going to open you up surgically and write it on your heart or do it through some spirit magic or something. He's going to cause you through experience to choose to take it into your heart. And by written on, it's more the idea of inscribed. So in other words, you take something, it comes into your heart, and it's just sort of floating around and then leaves. But no, once it's inscribed, it's permanent. So he's going to have you choose to have it inscribed into your heart. So hopefully that answers that question. But really, it's not that the covenant is different in any way. Every time there's been a covenant, by the way, you had a Adamic covenant, so to speak. You had a Noahic covenant, a Davidic covenant, a Mosaic covenant. Every covenant included the stuff prior and didn't take anything away. There's not one example of a covenant having less than the previous one. This one is just like those two. It has more. It has a full understanding of Yeshua. That's in addition to the existing covenant that was there prior. Each covenant builds on the previous one. Okay? In an additive way, not in a less way, a taking away.
All you sow, you reap. When we are new in Torah and our days are like the tribulation, are we reaping now or just tested to be faithful?
All right, so when it comes to reaping and sowing, very often it's not going to be clear if what you're dealing with is time and chance or reaping and sowing. Don't be quick to go to a conclusion. I mean, I know people back in I know Christians from way back that they stub their toe, they think it's because they did something. Everything that happened and that was not good, you must have done something. Anybody experience those people? Okay? Anything that would go wrong, they would say, oh, what did you do? Oh, you must have done something. Sometimes it's time and chance. Now, I would always ask the question, Abba, is there something that I did? Or not something you did, but are you trying to get my attention? Okay? If I'm calling over to my son and he's not listening, he can't hear me, he's not doing anything wrong, but I'm just trying to get his attention, I may go over there and tap him or push him or shout, just, hey, I've been calling to you for the last 10 minutes, and he turns around and he goes, oh, now, I was just trying to get his attention. So sometimes things happen just so that he has your attention. Also, Solomon tells us about time and chance, happen to everyone. And so let's not be too quick to say, oh, he's punishing me. Just work on the plank in your eye. Try to get your life right in the walk with him. See, I just mentioned my son and he walks in the room. That's okay. You can go sit down. But you understand what I'm saying, hopefully, Johnny, is that it's over time we'll know better what was happening. Don't be too quick to jump to a conclusion as something's happening to read meaning into it. But when it happens, your first thought should be, okay, let me pause and examine myself and say, is there something that I'm doing that brought this on? Is there something that I'm doing that he's trying to get my attention just as a little poke, just to wake me up and say, hello, I'm trying to get your attention maybe in some other area? Let that be, yes, your first default place to go. But also be willing to accept that it could be simply time and chance. Absolutely could be just that. All right, next question. Wait, let me add something, sorry. Especially when you're new. Okay, Abba's not looking to smack you every time you mess up when you're brand new. You're just starting to figure it out. He would be just like you would be if you were a good teacher or parent, saying, hey, that was almost right. You're getting close, encouraging you, keep trying. Don't expect to figure it all out the first day you're starting to walk this way. It's like the kid who stands up and he's a little wobbly on his legs. He's going to take his first step, falls down. Well, he doesn't start really walking for quite a little while. I mean, he's got to try and fall and try and fall. And what do you go over there and like smack him and say, what's wrong with you? How come you're not walking? Just because he fell the first time he took one step? So that's your journey. You're taking baby steps. You're like the little baby. And you're new. And you're going to make lots of mistakes. So just take a deep breath, relax. And just every time you make a mistake, think, okay, I'm going to do better next time. Okay, Robert?
From Diane Bloom, could you clarify what Isaiah 65:4 means by the translation she is reading, who sit inside tombs and pass the night in secret places? She understands the pork reference, but not what this verbiage means.
No. Okay, next question. No, I'm just teasing. I like to do that at least once it's a session. I would have to dig more into those idiomatic phrases to understand exactly where, or what the reference is there. Just understand the reference is to doing what you shouldn't do wherever it is you're doing it, and trying to spin it in whatever way you're spinning it. Okay? Some people like to do that at night, or they do it behind people's backs. It's like the old idea of someone whispering behind your back. We say that about people talking behind your back. Is there really anybody standing literally behind your back doing that? No. It means that they're off somewhere where you're not, and they're doing whatever they're doing. So we use these phrases. So I really don't know off the top of my head what that particular, one verse is talking about as far as what that literally means. So I'm sorry about that. But in the context, it fits into everything else we're talking about there. So the way I explained that section should cover that particular thing. Okay, Frederick?
It's possible that it's referring to ancestral worship. And that
Good.
sort of thing.
It could have to do with ancestry worship. It could be a bunch of things. I'd have to dig into it more. Needless to say, figuring it out is not going to change what it's trying to talk about, is the section. Remember, we know about context means that things in an area are all going to be addressing basically the same point. So whether you understand every little piece that was in there, you can understand the point that was being made. Okay, so that's a part of that same point that I did explain in the teaching. Okay, what else you got?
Okay, from David Botwick Rice. First question, is Deuteronomy 4:35 an echo of Mihamoka is Exodus, or I guess it means in Exodus 15:11, considering that Deuteronomy 4:34 is mentioning the signs and wonders of the Exodus of Egypt?
I guess that could be something that connects. I mean, look, if you're reading something and the Ruach helps you connect something together, there's probably because there's a linkage there that one is supposed to remind you of the other. Okay, there's some piece of that that's resonating with you to help you connect that dot to deeper understand it. So here you have a reference to some of the things that were happening in Egypt. And so verse 35 says, the reason that I did this was so that you would know that I am Yahweh and that I'm the one who brought you out, not any of these other guys. And look, Michamocha has also got the same idea, who is like you among all the gods. So yes, I can see where you can draw a conclusion for that. Whether he was trying to make that linkage doesn't really matter. I mean, it's, but if you make that linkage, that's good.
All right. Question number 2. Could you please elaborate on the mention of the body parts, face, nostril, hands, in Isaiah 65 regarding Elohim, us being children to him, and Yahweh having feelings and wanting a relationship?
Say it one more time. I didn't quite hear all of that.
Can you elaborate on the mention of body parts, face, nostrils, hands, in Isaiah 65 regarding Elohim and us being children to him and Yahweh having feelings and wanting a relationship?
Let me get back to Isaiah 65. Hold on. Okay, so when you see these things, like when he says there's smoke in my nostrils and these kind of phrases, or he says I've held out my hands, he's using the idiomatic understandings or just the simple imagery that would make sense to us. Okay? I mean, he's not literally walking out there with hands, reaching out to grab you, and you're not going to look and see a big giant hand come after you or something. I'm reaching out my hand to them. We understand what that phrase means, though, when I say, look, I reached out to you. Well, maybe I called you. Maybe I sent you a text. Maybe I sent you an email. I reached out to you. Sounds like my hands are going towards you. But I may run into you and say, hey, look, I reached out to you like 5 times. And you'd be like, what do you mean? I said, well, I sent you a text. I left you a voicemail, But we understand that means I tried to get in touch with you. I tried to be there for you. I reached out to you. So when you see these ideas of face-to-face, or although in Moses' case it was literally, a face-to-face, but the nostrils, the hands, etc., it's all just to try to communicate, like, look, these things are smoke in my nostrils. Anybody ever get smoke in your nostrils? Is that any kind of fun? Burns pretty bad, doesn't it? He says, this stuff is just like a burning smoke in my nostrils, a fire that burns all day. It just, it's awful. That's how it makes him feel. Now, as far as the emotions, he wants us to love him. He is compassionate. He loves us. Those are emotions. He tells us the fruit of his spirit has things like joy in it. It's an emotion. And so, yes, he's emotional. He's just not emotional in a human way where his emotions are out of control or in some sort of, more the human allows our emotions to drive and lead and control us than for us to be having our emotions under control. Okay? Because if his anger wasn't under control, we would not be here. He would have wiped everybody out at some point. You would have. You get angry enough, you would have said, fine, wipe them all out. See, you could say, let's wipe them all out and let God sort them all out later. He can't do that. He just says, wipe them all out. Well, there's nothing. That's it. They're gone. I just wiped them all out. He needs to sort it out first so he has his anger under control. And his anger is righteous indignation in a right way. And it's meant to teach, to instruct, and to do what, all the plans that he means it to do. What else you got?
From Leanne. Also in Isaiah 65, walking according to one's thoughts. Is this the same as Yeshua was instructing in Matthew 5 with sin beginning in the heart?
Well, any kind of instruction that's trying to teach you about either thoughts or heart, it's got that process going, how you think, then the heart adds the emotional content to it. Because you may have a thought, if it doesn't have any emotional content to it, you're probably not going to do it. I mean, there are things that you want to do as a thought, but doesn't have a whole lot of emotion to it. Guess what happens? Nothing. Even though you wanted to do it, like you had a thought going, hey, I'd like to do that. But it wasn't a strong emotion. It was just like, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. As opposed to saying, man, I got to do this. This is great. This is something I definitely need to do. And you get all emotional. And, oh, that sounds so great. And you think about it and you meditate on it and you talk to your friends about it and the heart now is involved. Instead of just a thought going, hey. Think of it this way. Some of you have had the thought, you've been in the washroom and you've looked at the mirror and said, I think I'd like to lose weight. But there was no emotion there. So guess what you did? Nothing. At some point, though, you might have looked in the mirror and go, I don't ever want to keep looking at myself like this. And you start really getting emotional about it. And you might even start crying, saying, how did I ever let myself get this way? And then the emotion might lead you to start to take an action. You understand what I'm saying? The emotion or the emotional level of emotional content is what leads to whether you do something or not. The stuff you're not doing that you know you should do, you haven't attached enough emotional desire behind it. So you don't do it. If you wanted it bad enough, you'd figure it out. But you have to want it. That's the emotion. So yes, the verses that talk about the heart are connected in with all of this. The thought, the mind, the heart, the actions, the hands, the walk. Like look, it talks about here, it says, look, they walk in a way that is not good. So their walking in a way is linked to what? After their own thoughts. So when you read about verses about walking in the way, or there's a way that should go, or there's a way that seems right to a man, well, all of that goes back to, oh, there must have been something going on in the heart, because the walking comes after the thinking in the heart, right? Mind, then heart, then action. So when it starts talking about actions, the work of the hands, or any kind of things, like it says, and you shall bind it as a sign on your hands, in other words, what you do, as you walk by the way, as you lay down, as you rise up, like Deuteronomy, the V'ahavta, Deuteronomy 6, 5 through 9. What is that talking about? All things that started with what? A thought. Actually started with Shema, hearing. Shema, hear Israel. Think about what you just heard. Turn it into action. Meditate on it day and night. But what did it say before all of that? Between the hear it and, when it says hear, O Israel, he says love with all your heart. Now you got to put huge emotional content to that thought. You see, it's all right there. Shema Yisrael, hear what I'm saying. But understand, if you don't love me with all your heart and strength and don't put a lot of emotion to it, you're not going to do the rest of this. You heard it. How many times you go up to your kid, or you remember your parents going up to you saying, did you hear what I said? Yeah. Well, how come you didn't do it? Because they didn't care. There was no emotion on their side. So then they smack you. Now you have an emotion. Next time you'll remember, because now emotionally say, I don't want that to happen again. I'm not endorsing the smacking. I'm just saying this is stuff we all experienced. And they say, good. Now maybe you'll remember. Well, why would you remember? Because the emotion now is connected. Somehow emotion is connected to the tailbone. You smack it, it remembers things better. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay? So yes, anytime you see a verse that deals with any of those elements, they are connected. Okay, what else you got?
From Elizabeth, Solomon was anointed, and yet he ended up an egregious sinner. Does he inherit the promise?
All right. We do not play that game. Okay? We do not play the do they get in game. It's above your pay grade. That's what I always tell people. All right? Be careful not to fall into that trap. That's a trap to get you, look, I'll read you something real simple. It answers the question. All right? Now it says here, we're talking about the wheat and the tares, right? Matthew 13. He says, okay, and the servants came and said, Master, did you not sow good seed in the field? From where does the darnel come, or the tares? And he says, a man, an enemy, did this. Do you wish then that we should go and clean him up? He says, no. See, it's not their pay grade. He says, no, lest while you gather up the one, you also uproot the other. See, there's Yeshua saying, no. Now, he does say later on, he goes, as to the darnel, okay, he says, look, I'm going to send messengers who are qualified then to do this. This is in verse 39. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest at the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers, those who he sends that are qualified to do the separating. Shh, that isn't you. Don't tell anybody I told you that. Okay, it's not you. I know we have a lot of people out there that think that I'm a prophet and I'm an apostle and I'm a this and I'm a that. Well, you know what? Stop all that. This is end time event. At the end of the age, the reapers and messengers will deal with that. We're not there yet. And it probably won't be your job. Okay, so if that's Yeshua's instruction to us, saying, look, the wheat and the tares are together, and no, you don't get to decide which one is which and figure it out and separate them, because you will make a mistake and grab the wrong one.